long time ago. Hi, again. Jason Hammond is our next speaker. He is a middle and high school librarian. He also does the Strategy Game Club at Silver Creek Central School District. In addition to helping students find great things to read, he collaborates closely with Silver Creek's teachers in order to support numerous research projects and classroom activities, such as the American Revolution Breakout Challenge and Medieval Demo Day. He also coordinates the school's annual American Library Association International Games Day event and the cross-curricular Mini Renaissance Fair. Prior to his work in the library, Jason taught social studies for 8 years, and his first 5 years were actually spent in Las Vegas, which I think is pretty cool. Here you go.
So someone at lunch asked about the tie tack. It's from the Excalibur when I worked in there. A couple of the kids bought it for me when I was there. Which works now because our school's the Black Knights, and so I got the little knight on the horse. So sorry to bring everybody back from lunch, and let's start with just a quick little quiz. Raise your hand since we're going to talk about gameplay. If you've got a favorite game, maybe on your phone or on your tablet, something that you pop onto every once in a while. Just a quick show of hands for a couple people. Okay, keep that in mind because we'll come back to that idea later. I've got another question for you, but let's move on to here. Okay, there's kind of a lot of talk recently as far as, implementing games into class, and is it academic, is it worthwhile, how do you do it correctly? What I'm looking at is why would you add this to your learning environment? What are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve? And there's a lot of evidence that kind of supports the benefits to gamifying your class, and there's a couple different ways to do it. The link down here worked way back when we were supposed to have this presentation the first time, and we got snowed out. Since then, they've taken it off the conference page, probably in preparation to do it again next year. But it showed an infographic that kind of backed up some of these claims about, playing these games in class can boost a kid's mathematical ability, it boosts their literacy, their reading comprehension. Obviously, your brain is active, you're developing, you're learning. And one of the cool things about games is you always want to try again, even when you lose. Okay, I have a copy of this in hard copy. I'll try to scan it and upload it to the TIFF page in place of that link that doesn't work anymore. Okay, and so you have those academic reasons, but there's numerous fun reasons of why we would do this in the classroom. Okay, it's using concepts the kids already know how to use. Okay, they play games like I just asked you on their phones, on their tablets. They play board games. They play games in PE. Okay, it's something that they're already familiar with, so they kind of know the structure and how it's going to work. And it gives you that hands-on aspect. Like we set up this, the breakout challenge that was just mentioned about the Revolutionary War. And so we've got this puzzle laid out on a table, and we had 5 different stations. This is just one of them. And so it's kind of open-ended, but they've got these clues they can manipulate, and they could reach the solution from a number of different avenues based on the clues that are here on the table. Like for this one, they've got the book about George Washington versus King George. It's more of a visual clue because of the crown there on George is the same shape as the crown of a king in chess. And so if they make that connection and they take a look at the king, there's a little rolled up note tucked up inside one of the chess pieces. There's some written clues, there's some extra books that they can flip through, and then the big print of with Paul Revere, and the idea is that he's the silversmith. And so all this stuff is aiming them to the idea of silver. And then like we have up on the walls here, they had a periodic table available. And then using the letter number combinations on the periodic table, they were able to break down some of the written clues. And so it was combining a whole lot of disciplines and ways of problem solving all at the same time. Okay, so you had those multiple different approaches to get there. And then the cool thing with this clue was it gave them half an answer. Then they had to work with the group next door to get the other half. And what they ended up getting was a call number for a book in the library. And then it was fun to see them once they put the pieces together, go run into the shelves when they've got like, a minute and a half left, trying to find where that lock is, or the key that's going to open the lock was tucked inside one of the library books. Okay, and so where do you begin with putting all this stuff in place? There's kind of 3 broad ways to go about it. Approach one is taking games that already exist that kind of can fit your curriculum or your learning standards and your content and working them into your class because the work's already been done for you. This game's been published, the rules are provided, the materials are there. It makes the work on you a little bit easier. Okay, approach two, you can have the kids actually learn their content and then make a game to teach it to others and show you what they've managed to learn. And then approach three is kind of the complicated one where you're going to gamify your whole learning environment by restructuring your class, using things like experience points or badges, daily rewards, and that sort of thing that build from like computer games, online RPGs, and things that they already kind of are familiar with when they're playing at home. Okay, and then you don't have to do those individually. They obviously overlap, and you could focus on one to get started, or you could blend the different concepts together. And so as far as the pre-made and already published games go, there's tons out there that you can use to already support, you know, Common Core content and different curriculum standards. If you're worried about how do I fit this in, I would like to see it like during maybe, you know, a substitute for a lab period or even a pull-out session. I mean, I'm a librarian, so send them down to the library where we can work in small groups playing through a game. Do it in multiple stations within a classroom. You could rotate through the activities because you've got things like this evolution game, which can totally tie into science and biology content standards. We've also got this one called Freedom, which is a good one for teaching the idea of the Underground Railroad during American history. Okay, the resources that I put on the side here is the International Games Day, was already mentioned during the introduction. They provide tons of free stuff. You just register your school library. Usually it's kind of middle of summer, early fall, they'll open up registration. And then their sponsors just send you the free games and you get to use them forever once you have them. You can incorporate them into library time, into class curriculum. The really cool one is this Genesee Valley Library Catalog. Their whole regional BOCES has gathered up tons of these games, and they've already done the work of matching them up to Common Core standards in the various disciplines. You can take this link to their catalog, search what they have, and it tells you automatically this meets math standard, whatever, or this fits into the biology curriculum here. And so it's really nice. They've managed to create this circulating collection that then they can distribute out to their schools. And then I was at this, the link that didn't work to the gaming conference. I was there way back in the fall, and they did a preview night at the Museum of Play in Rochester. And so they've kind of got everybody together and they're serving snacks and kind of letting people socialize and get to know each other. And this guy comes up and introduces himself as Roger Rosen, and he's talking for a little bit. And then he says, yeah, my company just bought out this publisher. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that Roger Rosen, who owns the whole big deal. And they have a series of teaching through gameplay books, which you can find if you follow the other link, because they've written things that go along with how to teach this Underground Railroad game as like a teacher's guide in the content that it goes with. Okay, even simple games can be pretty awesome. I have a special ed teacher that borrowed this one from me for most of the year because she was working on teaching her kids the states, the geography of the nation, and what the capitals are of the corresponding locations. And so they borrowed that for quite a while, and she'd pull it out every once in a while as kind of a refresher lesson and let her kids mess around with it. Okay, so these are working into content that you already have. And as far as her class goes, it was an easy way to differentiate the content. And you're always, even the simple ones like this, you're building those critical thinking skills. Or if it was a math game, even if it's simple math, you're still reinforcing those concepts. Okay, some things that might limit this approach, those were advantages on the last screen there, is there might not be enough copies to go around if you have a big class. So that's why I kind of suggested doing them as stations or pull-out sections, things like that. Sometimes they can be pretty pricey, like that evolution biology game and the really big fancy packages that have lots of components and cards and color materials can be a little bit cost prohibitive. So if you can work with your library or your BOCES like the Genesee Valley to build that collection cooperatively, it might be a more cost-effective approach. And sometimes the time or the complexity of the game might seem overwhelming, but remember it's there as a tool to teach your lesson, not necessarily just to play the game as it's made. So don't be afraid to modify or streamline things and throw out rules you don't need, and make it do what you want it to do to get your lesson across. Okay, moving on to the approach number 2, where the kids have learned something and now they make the game. Okay, do it in groups, assign them roles as if they were a game development studio, help them build those real life skills, have like, your art director, your project designer, your play tester, and that sort of thing. And I've got like an assortment of random components and dice and cards and things like that, but it's amazing what you can do even with just a deck of cards, and there's enough diversity in there to, if you give the kids a topic and a deck of cards and say, come up with something cool, okay, let their creativity take charge. You could get into the multi-sided dice, counters, design a board or whatever, but let their creativity, okay, work with the content. And reuse old stuff. You can always hit garage sales and things like that, or make good friends with like your local hobby store. Okay, that was like a physical way to build a game. If you're looking for a digital approach, at that conference we learned about something called Twine, which is kind of open source software that lets you design choose your own adventure, multi-path stories. So not only has it kind of got that tech aspect, you can use it as far as your ELA or creative writing. You could use it to recreate like a historical sequence of something. And kids are familiar with those kinds of books. They know things like, the Telltale series of PlayStation games or whatever based on their favorite show, where they can make choices as they go through. So they've got that background, give them a chance to do it on their own. The other thing most your kids know how to do is to play card battle games. There's Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and Magic the Gathering. There's the digital versions like Hearthstone and things like that. And so you can have them make their own trading cards with this read, write, think trading card maker. It lets you import pictures. It's got a pre-designed template where you can pick, is this a real person, a fictional character, an object? And then they create the cards to go along with that. And I did this over summer school with some elementary kids last year, and they really got into it. And we were doing like the founding fathers, and they thought it was really cool to find a picture, import it onto the card, assign stats to that character, and come up with my guy can do this and what can yours accomplish, that sort of thing. Okay, so advantages of this second approach is the kids are kind of taking charge of their learning and their creativity and showing you what they know and then teaching it to others. Because when they make a game, you got to have time to play test it and work out the errors, and then show them that you value what they've done and play the games. Let the other kids try them out, make that part of your activity. Those career skills are a big deal when you're assigned that role in the group to, I'm the art director, I get to make all the cool pictures, you get to assign the text that goes along with it. And then, like I said, be sure to play them so that you can share, their effort and what they managed to accomplish. And there's the links to find both of those. Trading card maker, I think, uses Flash, so if you're on Chrome, it won't open, but other browsers will. Okay, so limits to this. Again, you might not have all those physical components with all the counters and boards and pieces. So like I said, hit up the yard sales. Look for donations, use your library, find out your local hobby store, what they can do for you. When we held our ALA Games Day this year, we had the guys from right here in Fredonia from the Power 9 hobby shop come in, and they brought free things to give to the kids. They taught them how to play different games and gave them a deck of the cards and sent them on their way. And so it was really cool. And one concern might be, though, that kids made a game and it's got some content errors or facts that are wrong, or it's just not super fun once you put it into practice. Okay, do what real development studios do. Have play testing and feedback as part of your activities so you can work beyond those points. Okay. Number 3 is to gamify your whole system. Make your class a game. The kids are assigned roles. Maybe they're earning experience points. Maybe you're handing out trading cards of your own. I kind of designed these as part of a project where imagine the kids have a slip cover, like the 9 slots of standard trading card size stuff. And as they accomplish things in class, they earn these cards. These might be currency they can cash in for something. It might be I'm allowed to equip my textbook when I go to take a test as like my special item, so I can look up an answer I'm not sure of. It might be, maybe a magic spell where I can cash in this card and the teacher is going to come around and eliminate one of the wrong choices for my multiple choice question I'm not sure of. Okay, so you're kind of gamifying that environment, and this is kind of their treasure when they succeed, or maybe once a week they roll on a treasure table and earn one of these items that then they can accumulate and cash in when the time is right. It also worked well for the idea of differentiation again, without singling out kids, because it's like, oh, well, this kid can use their book on the test because they have this special item and it allows them to do that. And you can kind of make that something everybody earns at some point, but the kids that need a little bit extra help, maybe they get that special item a little bit sooner. So you can kind of level things out. If you use experience points, I recommend, and I've seen other research to go along with this, that you don't tie that to their grades, that it's like a separate track, because you want all the kids to be able to level up and take advantage of the XP, not just the kids that are scoring the highest all the time. And eventually those kids that are scoring the highest, if it's tied to the experience point system, they're like, well, I'm already got like a 95. I don't need to earn more points. I'm up to where I need to be. And then that fun of the game kind of diminishes for them. And if they've played like online shooters and things like that, or other similar types of games, they're familiar with the idea of, having a set of perks or a loadout that they go into battle with. And so that could, again, tie into the idea of like these trading cards or special privileges in class, which give them, a little bit of a benefit when it comes time for a quiz or a test or a group activity. Like for this one, the horn is the horn of summoning reinforcements. Well, that lets them work together with a partner if they cash in that card. Okay, this is the idea of the treasure table I just mentioned. And so you can do that with all the funky polyhedral dice, where maybe every Friday it's distribute the treasure day, and everybody gets a chance to roll. They earn some cards, they earn some privileges. There could be physical objects on there, like maybe they, earn a pencil or a notebook or a drink from the, the class cooler or something or other. Okay, but then there can also be like, the more game-oriented type features. If you're going to kind of go with the RPG style setup, think of the way those games work. There's solo tasks, and then there's tasks that are like for your guild, your best group of friends that you willingly team up with. Sometimes there's pickup groups where you don't work with your best friends. You've got to choose somebody random else in the class, and that's who you're going to be doing the job with. If you want to kind of cut down on how much of an overwhelming amount of content you grade, sequence things into quests where they have to go step by step. One task leads them to the next, and then you can score the final progress on that. And one thing that you always see in like role-playing games, especially online, is the idea is that I'm farming for XP. I'm trying to level up. I'm trying to gain an advantage by spending a lot of time on a repeatable task. Well, maybe you could do that if your class offers like current event activities or research articles, where it's kind of a minor task that's simple enough to do. They could maybe do up to maybe 3 a week, and then that gives them the experience point advantage for willingly spending their extra time doing some extra activities. Or you could turn that even into extra credit. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility in this system, but it can also become the most complicated. If you have a digital learning system like Schoology or something similar, it can help the sequencing by automatically unlocking tasks after like the prereqs of one thing have been completed. It opens up the next step, and that can also help you provide those multiple paths where maybe one student chooses to go one direction and read more, while another chooses to go another direction and watch a video clip. The friendly competition is fun for a lot of kids, but not always everybody. And if you're looking for examples or resources, There's a Schoology gamified civics class, which kind of is a really good example of what I'm talking about, where everything's sequenced through a number of quests, that then one thing leads into the next with little built-in quizzes and video clips. The XP calculator that Andy taught us about a long time ago. And then if you're artistically challenged like I am, Open Game Art has all those free to use images that I stuck on the training cards. Okay, so it's really intensive to restructure the whole class. You might want to just start with a little bit. I know that one of our math teachers does some similar things with the idea of class craft, but she just uses it during review time at the end of the year. So they get that little bit of a taste of it and she can test how it's going to go. And if you have students that aren't into the idea of competition and don't want to be listed on like the XP chart or the leaderboard, I mean, make that excusable. Their name doesn't have to show up. Okay, give them the freedom to still participate in the game, but decline from the listings if they don't want to be there. Okay, and so then, like I said, they sent me to this conference back in the beginning of the year, and they let me do my extracurricular work over the summer on implementing the Schoology type gamification stuff. And then one of our former administrators comes and says, I don't think all this game stuff's very academic. So are they really learning something if the kids are having fun all the time? Okay. Well, I'm like, well, why did you let me go to the conference and do all this extra work if you didn't think it was academic in the first place? So remember, it all includes content mastery. They're working on the stuff you want them to learn. There's critical thinking and literacy skills, especially in like role-playing type scenarios and things like that. There's tons of games that even when it's simple math, it's still mathematical skills. Like we have kids that we'll play Hearthstone, the digital card game on our library computers. And I sat one time, and I haven't even finished it yet, just trying to list all the different math standards that can match up with how that game works. Okay, so the skills are there. Okay, an example from our mini Ren Fair the other day, we've got our high school kids teaching what they know to all the fifth graders. We had like 90 fifth graders come participate in our activity by doing a jousting demonstration with pool noodles and hobby horses. Okay, it's teaching that Global 9 content along with what the fifth graders had just learned in their library classes, because our elementary librarian did a whole unit on the Middle Ages with them. So it's covering the ideas of knights and squires and training, the feudal system, okay, the hierarchy of people, the idea of tournaments and chivalry. And some of the games that my kids really love to play, some we already had, some I picked up after attending the Gaming and Education Conference. Super Fight's really neat, and there's a ton of expansions to it. It's good for setting kids up maybe in an ELA class or a debate club before they have to make a persuasive argument or write a paper or do something where they're trying to sway one side over another. Because what this does is give you a whole bunch of crazy cards. You pull 3 white and 3 black. You pick a character from one set of cards and a special ability from the other color. Pick your best combination, put it down on the table, draw one more random ability off from the deck of black cards, and hope that what you put down is going to beat whatever your opponent puts down. And then it becomes a game of arguing why your character can outdo theirs. And then there's usually a couple judges that'll get to make the final decision of who made the best persuasive argument. And so you get things like the Terminator or a Vampire Slayer or a doctor, and it's kind of open-ended. Some say, well, I take the doctor to mean like, a heart physician. Somebody else is going to say, well, my doctor, I'm going to play it up as it's Doctor Who. He can do whatever I think he can come up with in the TV show. Okay, and it's totally random. And then they've got extra packs on there that can change the environment. Like the battle is now taking place on the moon or underwater, or it's a dance-off or something like that. But it's all about persuading and using your argument, even if it's kind of crazy, to make others see your point of view. Stratego is obviously good for the strategy and critical thinking aspects. You could see that being even tied into something if you modify the rules a bit for the Revolutionary War or a lesson about Napoleon. Treasure Hunt is one of the ones they sent us from the game day sponsors. And so it's more kind of a fantasy adventure, but it's really simplistic and it involves a lot of teamwork, or if you don't want the other person to win, you can kind of work against them. And there's some quick math skills and things like that. They also sent us the giant Pathfinder role-playing game box, which is full of a ton of stuff, and it's kind of a card-based role-playing game. So again, you're building the literacy, the thinking, the reading, the teamwork. The classics like chess and Othello, we've got kids that'll play these all day long, and they'll challenge each other. Once they learned how to play Othello, it was like nonstop. You know, hey, let's play this again. Hey, do you want to challenge me? And it's all that critical thinking and patience and forethought. And that's it. Questions?